is Barbara Exum. I'm from Wilson, North Carolina. My question is the mission of FERC to function as an agent of the gas companies with an objective to establish an administrative quagmire that puts us landowners in a chokehold until it forces us to hand over our land rights to the gas companies. Based on my experience with FERC and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, I believe the answer to this question is yes. The lines between FERC and the gas companies were so blurred, it was hard to tell who was running the show, even at the so-called FERC hearings. My 4 siblings and I own a small farm in Wilson County, North Carolina. This farm has been in our family for over 100 years. At various points in our lives, my ancestors, my parents, my siblings, and I have all worked on this farm in order to earn a living and educate our families. Just like a businessman would work hard to build his company to provide for his family. This is a minority community because in the 1970s, it was very difficult for African Americans to buy property to build homes. Very difficult. And I don't need to explain that fact. Because of this, my parents made the decision to sell lots on our farm so that young Black families could also have the opportunity to achieve the American dream of home ownership, just like everybody else. Now, 50 years later, these young Black families are now senior citizens, most of them caring for either their elderly parents, a spouse, or even grandchildren. Our community is not opposed to progress or change for the greater good, but not when it comes at the harm of our environment or our community or our very lives for the financial gain of others, and especially when there are alternatives that are environmentally safer energy alternatives that will truly benefit us all, and not just the gas companies and their stockholders. There are federal government agencies with the mission of protecting wildlife, fish, game, other endangered species against environmental predators. So my question is, which federal agency is charged with protecting us humans against the predatory practices of the gas companies? The path of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was not a direct path from West Virginia to North Carolina. The path looked more like a gerrymandered political district. It snaked its way through North Carolina and miraculously found some of the poorer counties and communities, essentially communities least capable of fighting back. Unlike the gas companies, we don't have an army of lawyers and land agents working on our behalf, planning and strategizing for years to help safeguard us from the threat of eminent domain by the gas companies. When we learned about ACP's plan to seize our land rights, the FERC clock had already started its countdown for us. So right away, and with little warning, we felt like we were fighting 2 enemies, FERC and the gas companies, both with a goal of taking our land rights and armed with the threat of eminent domain. For a senior citizen or anyone, the mere threat of losing your lifelong home takes an immeasurable toll on your spirit, as well as your physical being. And this is already a vulnerable community. We're simple people. We live simple lives. We work hard and try to provide for our families, just like businessmen working hard to build their companies. We first learned about the gas pipeline's plan to invade our farms in 2014. We received a very nebulous, vague letter that there was no public notice in our local newspaper, no full disclosure of the plan and who would be impacted. Sometime later, we received a letter announcing a notice of a regional hearing that included several counties in the area. We expected to finally hear about this plan. Instead, there were land agents and gas company reps standing around a big empty room with tables and charts and graphs and promotional trinkets. There was no sharing of information about the plan. They only answered questions, and only if you knew the right questions to ask. For us landowners, the FERC clock had already started a countdown, and we were desperate to figure out what was going on. The next FERC so-called public hearing was at a local school, and again, we expected to hear some details about the plan. This was no public hearing. Instead, one by one, we were ushered into a small closet-sized room, told how many minutes we had to speak by a person with a stopwatch and a tape recorder. We're simple peoples, landowners just trying to figure out what's going on, not skilled lawyers or land agents experienced at making legal cases. This process was very disheartening. We landowners had zero confidence that anyone at FERC would ever listen to our 3-minute pleas. At this point, we asked ourselves, how many minutes, how many hours, how many years did FERC already allow the gas companies to make their cases to invade our properties? They only gave us 3 to 5 minutes. So really, did anyone at FERC ever go back and listen to our recorded pleas? Did anyone at FERC ever notice this injustice? Once again, where the poorest and minority communities are targeted. How is it that our communities always end up with the pig farms, the landfill sites, the chicken farms, the pellet factories, and so on? Those things that distract from the beauty of a community. How did we ever get so lucky? Does FERC ever notice this disparity? Our government has regulations to protect businesses and business owners against unfair business practices. So who protects us landowners from unfair business practices by the gas companies? Why does FERC work with the gas companies to unfairly take our land rights? Bottom line, I repeat my question, is the mission of FERC to function as an agent of the gas companies? Based on my experience with FERC and the ACP pipeline, it may not be their original mission, but it's certainly how they operate. Thank you.